Friends, I have a very exciting announcement, and I've been waiting quite some time to actually be able to share this with you because I hadn't gotten the results, but now everything's signed, everything's ready, and I absolutely can't wait to tell you everything. And not just the news, but a little bit of the story behind the news because, believe it or not, it's actually taken 2 years to be able to get here, and you'll understand why when I explain later on. But yes, I am so excited to tell you the story behind this and to announce and share all this really exciting information. So tune in because we have some very exciting things for you today. Hey friend, do you love the smell of books? Maybe you absolutely delight in the sound of a pen gliding across a page as you write. Hi, my name is Shira Rodriguez, and I am a Jesus follower, a writer, entrepreneur, and lover of all things boho and books. In this podcast, I want to take you on a journey of discovering yourself, discovering God and your passions, and how to make your life beautiful and so full that it overflows into the lives of others. And over here, we are not about compartmentalizing life. Oh no. Over here, we talk about holistically taking your life and presenting it as a place where others can be blessed just by knowing you. Are you excited? I am. So snag your favorite mug of tea or a pen and paper and let's jump in. Because you're listening to Her Reading Life podcast. Hey there, friends. Welcome to another episode of Her Reading Life podcast. I am so excited to be back on the podcast again, sharing with you guys. And I'll let you know, this episode today is going to be a lot more, I guess, chaotic because I'm not going to edit it as much as I normally do. I'm going to just make it very raw, very real. In fact, I may or may not be actually going for more of a just conversational feel for the podcasts because, to be honest, I usually edit quite a bit on my episodes. A lot of the ums, the ahs, pauses, I have a lot of them. But what I was realizing was that, I don't know, I kind of do enjoy feeling like there's someone else on the other side of the microphone or on the other side of, just listening to the podcast. It feels like a real person instead of being quite so clear cut. So I'm going to be experimenting with this. If you've been seeing my Instagram, you'll have seen that I am experimenting a lot there. So I'm definitely bringing that into the podcast as well, as per my sister's recommendation, to just try coming onto the mic and just not having a script, because usually I do have a script. And so yeah, I'm going to be definitely experimenting with this. But I did want to let you guys know the info, spill the tea on a very, very exciting announcement. I was teasing it on Instagram, and if you are subscribed to my newsletter, then you probably already know. But I was working recently on a short story. Actually, I was rewriting a short story that I worked on in high school. And so in high school, I had a wonderful, wonderful curriculum called Excellence in Literature. I highly recommend it if you're in high school and you're looking for a literature curriculum. This is absolutely incredible. I highly recommend it. So, so good. It gave me a very solid foundation for a writing career. They basically give you a college prep literature curriculum that is delightful, but also stretches you in some really beautiful ways. So in, I think, my last year in high school as a senior, I wanted to take a creative writing class. And I loved my literature curriculum, but it really was more focused on, writing essays and things like that, with the occasional creative writing twist, which I loved. So, long story short, I went through a lot of tutors and things like that, but none of them were able to really create a curriculum I was happy with. So in the end, my dad suggested I just make a curriculum for myself, a creative writing curriculum for myself to teach myself to write. My dad told me, imitation, when it comes to music, because my dad, he used to work in like the music industry and things like that. He's like, well, if you're imitating Mozart, or if you're trying to learn how to grow your skill in music, you imitate. I can only assume that in writing as an art, it's similar. So what we did was we created a curriculum that was basically based on that idea. So that meant that I created a creative writing curriculum. A creative writing curriculum based on my literature curriculum, which I already loved. So what I did was I would go through each module, which was a different book, and imitate each one of those books. And for my senior year, I chose the British literature, or I kind of chose it, but it kind of was what I was supposed to do anyway. It was just the order that the books were ordered in. So I did British literature that year. So that was one of the best literature years ever. I absolutely loved it so much because I was able to go from Beowulf to Virginia Woolf, imitating all the beautiful richness and style of the English language, literally from the time that it was Anglo-Saxon all the way to the 1920s or 30s, which is where Virginia Woolf wrote. And so, oh my goodness, I got to imitate all those works. And one of the modules between Beowulf and Virginia Woolf was Bronte's Wuthering Heights. Specifically, I think it was Emily Bronte. And I absolutely fell in love with the book. That was the first Bronte book that I had read. I loved it so much. I still love the Bronte sisters. Personally, I liked Jane Eyre better. I read it this year. I know, it was kind of weird that I hadn't read it before, but I read it this year, and I personally like Jane Eyre better in hindsight, but Wuthering Heights is also wonderful. I absolutely love it. And so yeah, I had to imitate and write a short story based on Wuthering Heights. So in a similar style and a similar story structure, that was my assignment that I set out for myself. So as I was writing this story, I really considered the things that I loved about Wuthering Heights, the style, the language. I read the book thinking, okay, what's the sentence structure that they're using? What's the feel that they're going for? The tone, the mood, how do they construct the dialogue? All those things. And I wrote up the story. Now, it didn't have to be direct imitation. Like, it didn't have to be strictly another added scene or like a deleted scene kind of feel. I did for that imitation, I basically did a story that had some similar elements, but I set it in 1930 with an American woman coming to Yorkshire, and kind of finding herself in a setting that was similar to Wuthering Heights. Similarly to the first narrator, it can get confusing in Wuthering Heights, the first narrator who comes to Wuthering Heights. Yes, I got it confused because sometimes I get Heathcliff and Wuthering Heights confused. But Wuthering Heights is the house. For those of you who don't know, Wuthering Heights is the name of the house. So the book is based after the house, and then Heathcliff is, I guess, the villain main character. I don't know. It's really interesting. I highly recommend it. I should actually do maybe like a podcast episode talking about Wuthering Heights, because it is a challenging book. Not gonna lie, it's confusing. It can be difficult to read, but there is so much beauty in it. And if you know how to read it, it's an incredible story. It really, really is. And it shows you how to create a very dark story with a light and hope, and how to write hope at the end, even in the middle of a lot of darkness, and how to tell, I guess, a story of a fall from grace, sort of. Hey there, listeners. Before we dive back into today's episode, I want to take a quick moment to talk about something really important. Reviews are the lifeblood of any podcast. They not only let us know what you're loving about the show, but also help others discover the beauty of living, giving, and repeating. So if you're enjoying the content we're putting out, here's a small favor I'd love to ask. could you take just a minute or two to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform? Whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform you listen on, your reviews make a world of difference. By leaving a review, you're not just sharing your thoughts with us, but you're also helping us climb the charts and reach more listeners who might benefit from our discussions. Plus, it's a wonderful way to show your support for the content you love. So friends, if you're finding value, inspiration, or even just a good laugh in any of these episodes, please consider dropping a review. It only takes a moment, but it means the world to us. And hey, if you want to go the extra mile, share the podcast with your friends, family, or anyone you think would benefit from these conversations. Together, we can create a community of listeners who are engaged, inspired, and ready to take on the world. All right, that's enough from me. Let's get back to the show. Thanks for being the wonderful, lovely, incredible listeners you are. And as always, enjoy the episode. Anyway, but I wrote up that story, called it Lockborn, and I edited it. I then stowed it away. I think I added it for my email list or something like that, but nothing really big happened with it. I loved it. I know that I loved the concept of the story, but I then stowed the book away, or the story away, and kind of left it there. Fast forward about, 2 years later? 3 years later, and it's January, I think, January or February, and I saw that the Wild Blue Wonder Press, which is a publisher started by Kellen Roth. You may have heard of some of her books. And she is publishing several anthologies, historical romance, kind of women's fiction anthologies. And I saw that the theme was going to be novelists in November. I'm not gonna lie, the whole November novelists theme and the dark academia feel was just it was just begging me to try and write for it. I wanted to so much, but I knew I was writing a novel and I was like, I don't know if I have time to be able to to write like a short story, come up with a good concept and everything. But I stowed it in the back of my mind. Again, there's going to be a lot of back of my minds and stowing things away in this story. But when I thought about it a little bit more, I realized, wait a minute, I have this old story from high school that I could just take and reshape and refurbish and kind of upcycle. So I took that old story out, and I knew that the beginning was kind of melodramatic, a little bit too much. I read over, I think, a little bit, and I was like, no, we got to change this. So I changed the beginning, and I played with it a little bit. Didn't like how it was quite sounding yet, so I stowed it away again. And then as the months went by, I kind of started realizing that maybe there was another way to play the story, because it did have to do with death and with someone facing death. So it could already be very dark, and the original story tone and theme was dark. So I was like, okay, what would create a lot of contrast? Because something that I really love to do when I'm writing is play with contrast. What is the last thing you would expect? So I had recently been reading and rereading a lot because I love these books. Some books by Catherine Center, specifically The Bodyguard by Catherine Center and Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. Both books are wonderful. Just letting you know, they do have some language. And I don't think there are any scenes in them. No, they're actually pretty clean on that end. But there's a lot of language. But they're hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I highly recommend them because they really are delightful, and they have such a beautiful message at the end. That's what I love about her books. It's not just a romance. It's about, okay, who does this person become at the end of the book? And I think if you've heard some of my previous episodes, you may have heard me recommending these books. Well, anyway, to make a long story, which is already long, shorter, I decided to kind of go more for a tongue-in-cheek, kind of sarcastic, self-deprecating almost humor throughout the book. And so I don't want to spill too much because I will have possibly a story reveal where I'll actually reveal what the story's about. But I can't share too much of it right now. But basically, I decided to go for a more lighthearted narrator to tell this story that would have otherwise been hard. And honestly, I have this really deep-seated belief that every tragedy has its own comedy, and in every comedy you can find a tragedy. So that rule, which has been my rule of thumb for a very long time, really allows me to create contrast and conflict in a good way, as well as a good balance. Because let me tell you, I used to be so melodramatic. My sister was rereading. Okay, so let me continue the story. So my sister was reading the story when I finished. I ended up rewriting a lot of the story, a lot more than I expected, but in a good way. In a way, it was good because it allowed me to be able to realize how much I've grown as a writer. Because my sister was reading through the story, and she would say, I don't know, this part just doesn't seem to belong. The rest is really good, but these parts, and guess what those parts were? Those were the original story parts that I had left. A lot of those had to be changed. I think there's maybe like 30 or 40% of the original story stayed, but the majority got changed. Even the setting was changed at the beginning from Chicago 1930s to 1980s New York, which actually I haven't even finished this movie, but I was watching You've Got Mail, starring Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, around that same time, and I only think I watched maybe like 40 minutes of it, but I loved the setting so much. I was like, wait a minute, what if I'd set this story in 1980s and start in New York? It's something that I think was so different that we don't really think about it. But let's just say most book lovers really love You've Got Mail because it's the whole bookstore vibe and everything, and it's got a kind of vintage feel, but at the same time it's kind of edgy and it's different. So I was super excited to explore this, especially since my parents are like from the 80s, so it was really cool to be able to research and just really get into that feel. So it feels more contemporary, but it still feels historical, which is absolutely delightful. Again, kind of like a conflicting feeling, which is exactly what I love. But yeah, and so I rewrote it. I gave it to my sister. So far, she really loved it. In fact, so much that she cried at the end, so I'm assuming that's a good thing. She didn't tell me that she cried because it was bad. She told me that it was pretty good. She liked it, so I'm very, very excited about that. But yeah, she was loving it. I remember the first time that I gave her the first portion of the story, I think I was having a bit of trouble with my novel, and so I was like, I don't know what to write, and I'm kind of feeling a little uninspired, so let me take my mind off of my novel and let me try doing something else. And I wrote the first 3 pages of the short story just for fun, experimenting with a style that was completely different from my own. And I gave it to my sister to read it, and she was like, this is so good. I think this is the best you've ever written. I'm like, no way, really? She's like, yeah, I love this so much. And one of the characters in particular, I think she told me that she absolutely loved her. And another beta reader, you know who you are, read this short story as well, and she said that she absolutely loved this character as well. It's a side character, and I'm not gonna lie, I loved creating her. She was just so fun and carefree. Anyway, but all that to say, I got the short story ready and sent it over to the publisher, and I waited. I honestly didn't have to wait long until they got back to me, and they said that they had accepted the story. So I am still over the moon. The contract is signed. everything's ready. I'm on the Slack page and everything with all the other wonderful writers, and I'm so excited. It seems surreal that I'll finally be able to get published. It's wild. I'm so excited to be able to bring this story into the world. And I've got so many incredible things planned for the launch. So many things. I'm so excited. But yeah, I will definitely let you guys know. I'm also, something else that I wanted to let you guys know of is that I am also going to be documenting my journey as I create this anthology, so the whole process behind it and everything, because I know that I would have loved to be able to see the process and the brainstorming and just all the things that go behind creating an anthology. So I'm going to be documenting them as best as I can, the writing process, the editing process, all this good stuff, so that you can really follow along on this journey until we get to publish this novel or anthology. I'm so excited. And if you would like to get these updates, I'm actually going to be sending the reels, because they're going to be Instagram reels, but I'm going to be sending them through the email list first. So if you want to get first access to these videos, sign up onto my email list so that you get notified every time I release a new one, and you're going to get first access to them before you even get to see them on Instagram. So definitely sign up on my link. You can go to bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez to sign up. I have an email list link there, as well as in the description box below. I have all the info down there. So yes, that is a lot of the exciting news for the anthology. Hopefully this was fun and interesting, and you were able to learn more about writing and the writing process. But yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this new format, because I definitely enjoyed this. I actually love just being able to chat with you guys. So yeah, I hope that you guys have a lovely day, and until next time, continue to live, give, and repeat.
Yay! You did it! I'm giving you a lovely big virtual hug because you just finished another episode of Her Reading Life podcast. If you'd like to access all the wonderful links I mentioned in this episode, visit my website at bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. There, you can access my blog posts, resources, and so much more. Also, check out my Instagram page for more inspirational content, and join my email list for insider secrets and exclusive updates on special events. The links are in the description box below. Also, if you could take a minute and leave a review for this podcast, that would be amazing. We're able to reach so many more people because of your reviews and ratings. I can't wait to chat with you next time, friends. Keep living, giving, and repeating.